Welcome into Outkick the Show, evening edition, reacting to the college football playoff rankings that just came out. Going to give you my top 5 and bottom 5 in the NFL. Kamala Harris drops out of the presidential race. Rivera fired, and the Seahawks beat the Vikings, dropping the 49ers from a 5 to a 1 seed. Got to grab something quickly. I shall return momentarily. And I am back. All right, here we go. Let's dive into what we just learned from the college football playoff rankings to begin, which just came out. LSU, number 2. Ohio State, number 1. In the 3rd spot, we have Clemson. 4th spot, we have Georgia. Nothing that surprising about the overall top 4. In the 5 spot, we still have Utah, Oklahoma 6, Baylor 7, and then I believe Wisconsin is 8, which seems a little bit high to me. Florida is 9, and in the 10 spot, we have Penn State. All right, that is the top 10 in general. What did we learn from the College Football Playoff Committee rankings? Not a ton, okay? Not a ton this week, but it's not that complicated. Lots of people trying to tell you all different moving parts. Let me tell you the big takeaways. If Georgia wins, they're in. All right, the number 1 takeaway is if Georgia wins, they are in the college football playoff. What's amazing here is if Georgia hadn't choked away their game against South Carolina, there would be no suspense at all about the college football playoff because barring a huge upset, we would know that Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, and Clemson were all in the playoff and nothing else would matter. It's only that loss to South Carolina which has cracked open the door that Georgia might not make the college football playoff. So number 1 rule is Georgia wins, they're in. I think for sure LSU and Ohio State, barring a major quarterback injury or some sort of devastating outcome, will be in the playoff. Clemson is going to beat Virginia. They're going to be in the playoff. So the real debate is going to be if Georgia loses to LSU, there'll be 2 primary debates. The first one will be who's the 4th team. Is it Utah if they get to 12-1, or is it the winner of Oklahoma Baylor? Get all your arguments sharpened up. I think it's going to be a real battle. Can go either way because you only got 12 or 13 people actually making a decision. Okay? So I think that Utah, if they handle Oklahoma, if they handle Oregon, has the inside track here. I really do. Because I think the win margins and the performance of Oklahoma in general, combined with the fact that Kansas State, who they lost to, is no longer in the top 25, those resumes are pretty similar. And I think the same thing would be true about Baylor. Easiest way for the Big 12 to get in is if Utah is upset by Oregon, then it's a no-brainer. Whoever wins the Big 12 gets in. All right? Okay, that is the big question number 1 in the event Georgia loses. Big question number 2. Who would be the overall number 1 seed? This matters a great deal if you believe, as I do, that there's a big drop-off between 1, 2, and 3, and 4. I believe if you look at the overall resumes, LSU would have a win over number 4 Georgia, number 9 Florida, number 11 Auburn, and number 12 Alabama. That's 4 teams inside of the top 12. That is a better top-level resume than anything that Ohio State has brought to bear. Now, Ohio State could have a win over Penn State, who likely would hang around the top 10. Then they would have 2 wins over Wisconsin, who would drop several places. And then they would have a win over Michigan. So that would be their comparable Big 4. But I think when you break down, go to the 5th best win if you want to, there's really not much difference between Cincinnati at home and LSU going on the road and playing against Texas. In fact, if you asked your average college football fan or coach, would you rather play Cincinnati at home or Texas on the road out of conference? I think almost everybody would say, I'd rather play Cincinnati at home than go out of conference and play against Texas in what was at the time a signature moment. So, if Clemson is locked in at the 3, if LSU and Ohio State both win, I think LSU will pass Ohio State. They should pass Ohio State because they would have the best resume of anybody out there and would deserve at that point to be the overall number 1 seed. Ohio State would become the number 2 seed, play against Clemson all the way out in Arizona, and LSU would play against Utah or Oklahoma or Baylor in the SEC in the SEC region, which would be Atlanta. All right, I don't think that's particularly complex. I don't think that's a difficult scenario. I think even Ohio State fans would have to acknowledge that LSU would have the better resume at that point in time, having beaten 4 top 12 teams to potentially 1 top 12 team for Ohio State, right? I mean, that's a pretty big difference if you're looking at the top part of the resume. If LSU lost to Georgia, then I think LSU would fall to 4. Ohio State would remain 1. In the 2 spot, you would have Clemson. In the 3 spot, I think you would have Georgia. So Georgia would be playing Clemson, and Ohio State would be playing LSU if they actually lose, okay? So that is the way that I would break this down. That is the scenarios that are out there for you to follow as you move forward. I think the committee is leaving space to be drastically more impressed by LSU's win over Georgia than they would be by Ohio State's second win over Wisconsin. Okay? So that is my college football playoff analysis. A lot of people want to know about teams outside of the playoff, like what bowl game you're going to go to, all those different things. I don't have any kind of scenario. Let me pause right here. Somebody just said if Ohio State beats Wisconsin, they'll have 4 top 13 wins. No, they won't. No, they won't. The movements will occur in the overall landscape of the rankings. I look at the rankings as they are the metric of the final point of the season, all right? It's a big deal to me to rate everyone as they finish the season as opposed to how they began the season. So the SEC teams are not going to move substantially. Georgia is 4 right now. Florida is 9. And Alabama and Auburn are 11 and 12. That's 4 top 12 teams. All 4 of those would be top 12 wins. Ohio State would have 1 top 12 win. They would have a top 12 win over only 1 team, and that would be Penn State. All right? Everybody else would fall outside of the top 12. You don't count Wisconsin at 8. You count Wisconsin where they end up. If Wisconsin loses to Ohio State again, by what metric is Wisconsin a high-ranked team with 3 losses, and what's their best win? Michigan? So I guess maybe they fall back to right above Michigan. So that is how you would win and break down everything in that scenario. That's my college football playoff analysis. All right, NFL top 5, bottom 5. My top 5 teams in the NFL. I have now got the Ravens at the number 1 team in the NFL. Nobody cares. Work harder. Lamar Jackson's credo, it's basically DBAP, a little bit more broadly defined. I got the Ravens 1, Seahawks 2, 49ers 3, Saints 4, and the Patriots 5. All right, that is my top 5 in the NFL right now, the Outkick top 5. My bottom 5 teams. I got the Lions, the Redskins, the Jets, the Giants, and the Bengals. That is the list of sadness. Again, the bottom 5 teams, the Lions, the Redskins, the Jets, the Giants, the Bengals, all of those teams are there, all right? Top 5, Ravens, Seahawks, 49ers, Saints, and Patriots, all right? That is the breakdown in general. Seahawks beat the Vikings last night. Big win for the Seahawks. I have to say this. Every year I say this when situations like this arise. There's no way on earth that the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles deserve to host a home playoff game. The biggest flaw that the NFL has, aside from their playoffs being too small, is that they create an artificial construct whereby if you win a division, even if it's an incredibly crappy division, you get to host a home playoff game. Last night with the Seahawks win, they moved from the 5 seed to the 2 seed, but they also bumped the San Francisco 49ers from the 1 all the way to the 5. There's no way on earth that either the Seahawks or the 49ers should have to go on the road to play against the crappy Dallas Cowboys or the crappy Philadelphia Eagles, who aren't any good and are getting 4 wins against the awful Redskins and the Giants every year. The NFL should take the top 6 teams and the top 4 should get to host home playoff games. That's the way it should work regardless. The top 6 playoff teams, and then you give the top 4 home playoff games, even if that means that sometimes you have division winners and the team that came in second in a division, because giving everybody who wins a division a home playoff game artificially presumes that everybody who is in different divisions are equal levels of talent when it isn't actually true. You can have divisions. I'm not opposed to it if it makes scheduling easier, but it makes no sense whatsoever to allow a team that wins a crappy division to get to host a home playoff game against a team that's that much better. I think the 49ers are getting screwed here. Speaking of getting screwed, nice little transition here. We have got Kamala Harris dropping out of the presidential race. She announced a few hours ago that she was dropping out before any votes were actually cast. This is a incredible collapse for Kamala Harris, because in the wake of the first Democratic debate, which I believe happened back in June, she attacked Joe Biden and surged to the top of the odds market, raised a ton of money, started selling T-shirts like crazy because she went after Joe Biden for being a supporter of busing. And she tried to basically paint him as an old school racist. Well, she surged in that moment, became the odds-on betting favorite to end up winning that the race. She was a short-lived favorite, and what a precipitous collapse it has been. She dropped out of the presidential race today. She was recently beaten in a national Democratic poll by Mayor Mike Bloomberg, who just entered the race like last week. And so she is finished. Everybody is saying nice things about her. It wouldn't stun me if Joe Biden decided to pick her to be his running mate to try and solidify the black vote and black support, even though Joe Biden has it all locked up right now. She is a relatively moderate person. She's a lot younger than him. It wouldn't stun me if he ends up picking her to be his vice presidential nominee down the road. But in the second debate, Tulsi Gabbard landed a bunch of different body blows that absolutely wrecked Kamala Harris. And as a result, she is out of the race, and she will go back to California and be a senator, and she is effectively done. So we will see what ends up happening there. But this was an amazing collapse by Harris, who went from in June leading the odds market and leading several polls to be the favorite for the Democratic nomination, to falling all the way out of the race 2 months before any actual votes were taken in Iowa. That's pretty crazy. Finally, Ron Rivera has been fired by the Carolina Panthers after 9 years, 76, 63-1 as a head coach, 3-4 in the postseason, 2 times as the National Coach of the Year in the NFL. This is going to be intriguing to see how it shakes out with the Carolina Panthers, because it appears that Cam Newton is finished there. They are turning the page as a franchise. What direction could they go? I'll give you a wild idea if their owner wants to take a flyer on something. What if he went and hired the offensive coordinator from the Baltimore Ravens, Greg Roman, who is right now killing it with Lamar Jackson? What if he went and hired Greg Roman, and Greg Roman brought back Colin Kaepernick, who he used to be the offensive coordinator for in San Francisco, as a Hail Mary attempt to remake the Carolina Panthers on the fly? Greg Roman put him back with Colin Kaepernick and go and attempt to win a championship with the two. I don't know. I'm just tossing it out there as a Hail Mary attempt. There's no quarterback that's really set. I don't think they're committed to Kyle Allen. Will Grier must not look very good in practice because they still haven't given him a start. Cam Newton is leaving. They could go into the free agent market and potentially draft someone anew, or they could make a Hail Mary claim there, reunite Eric Reed with Colin Kaepernick, and be the woke NFL franchise. Just tossing it out there as a possibility. I'm not sure what the play will be, but it should be interesting to see going forward. All right, I got to go coach some Little League basketball. It's basketball time. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'll be live tomorrow morning breaking down more of the college football playoff and everything else on Outkick the Coverage, my morning radio show. Then I'll be on Lock It In the afternoon for my television show. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Grab your shirts at Outkick.com. I'll see you guys. See y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See y'all.